everybody. We are here with one of my followers on my account that reached out to me for an interview. And I have Mustafa here today up in Canada. And Mustafa, just introduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Mustafa. I've been a follower of Ellen for oh God, how many years now? Probably since one of your first videos. And at the time, I myself had gone through a very strange and profound awakening experience. And I thought, like I told you in my emails, I thought my mind was going to explode. I just got an intense amount of downloads from all kinds of stuff. Maybe we can get into into the video, but since then, and very recently, I decided to open my own YouTube channel. Obviously, not to make the millions of dollars that I'm sure you're making off of this, but to help wake up as many people as we possibly can. It's been years of procrastination, but here I am today. And thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I think we need to talk more to different people that wish to say things. I think the more we talk to others, the better that, we can get things out into the public arena. And that's really all the intent of even having my channel was to
Yeah.
share the information that I was coming across. I was listening to things for years and I thought I was just being entertained until it actually started coming together and start weaving a tapestry of information. So, but yeah, tell us more about your awakening and the experience that you had.
Oh, okay. So what had happened prior to the actual, and lack of a better word, I'm going to call it a download because it's pretty much exactly what it was. I had a dream, if you want to call it that. But yeah, I mean, we all know there's dreams, and then there's certain, the one-off, maybe once in a lifetime, three times a lifetime. You get like a very weird, profound type of a dream where you've traveled somewhere. So I had this one particular experience where at the time I didn't know who this particular person or gentleman was that was showing me this. I found that many years later exactly that that was my higher self that I had a meeting with. But long story short is that I had gone somewhere, and I was a particular place where there was no sunlight, but I was able to see everything. It was almost like everything had like a purplish bluish tinge to it. And he took me into a room, and in that room it was the level of peace that I felt. I've never in my life felt this kind of peace. And I've done, like dabble with psychedelics, magic mushrooms, DMT, stuff like that, but this particular level of peace was just profound. There's no words to describe it. And I think now when I think about it, I think I needed to he was showing me this wall that I became mesmerized in on the and all it was like a Venetian plaster with many different shades of green to it, and it was almost like it was all alive. So it was like the green. There's some greens that were so dark it looked like it was black, and there was so many layers to it. I was just mesmerized by it all. But that in itself brought me in an immense state of peace, and I. Now, when I think back about it, I'm like, okay, I think I needed to see that because what he showed me afterwards shook me to my core, and I was shown scenes from the 1800s and the level of destruction. And I knew it was the 1800s because some of the clothing of some of the people that they were wearing. I mean, I've always been a student of history. That's the only class I ever did well in school. Not because I believed it, because I just always go back to the teacher and ask all these difficult questions, and I would always get like a good mark just simply because I had like a rapport with the teacher. But I was shown this immense level of destruction of the 1800s that made absolutely no sense at all. And the type of buildings that I had seen made absolutely no sense. And I saw, and at the time I was still, indoctrinated in the religious mindset. I was born a Muslim, but I had seen just around these religious sites just incredible amount of destruction, and it just all of it shook me to my core. And because I have a construction background, the first thing that came to me when I saw some of this, especially around the religious sites, I was like, "Hey, I can fix this." Not that I could fix it, but for some reason I was like, that's the first thing that came to me. I can fix it. And he put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "No, not for you." And I didn't know what exactly that meant. What do you mean, not for me? Like, am I in some kind of religious trouble? Like, I was just so perplexed by it. And the next scene, they just skipped to the next scene. I was back outside of this room in this bluish, purplish type world, and he was sitting on top of a very large, like megalithic type rock. And yeah, just I remember his back, just like a perfect, magnificent back, all like a muscular and whatnot, perfect V shape, and a samurai type long braided hair. And that was the end of it. And believe it or not, for like 2 years, maybe even on a daily basis, I was wondering like what was the purpose of this? And I started looking into uh, the 1800s, believe it or not. So, because what I had seen is the 1800s, so I started looking into the 1800s, and I came across Gallica. So when I started looking into these archive sites, again, my mind was just perplexed. I'm seeing architecture that shouldn't exist. I'm seeing, electric cars that shouldn't exist. I'm seeing all of this, like just mind bending stuff all over the place, from dog-headed people maps of North America. When you go further back to the 1500s, you start seeing maps of North America, the Tartarian Empire, and I'm sure the audience knows about all of this stuff. So um and I really could not make sense of any of the stuff whatsoever at all. My world was still a spinning globe, even though I had questioned this severely as a child. But all of these memories had been wiped out. It's been kind of the system had worked it out of me. But long story short, one day I'm driving home from a job site that I had. And thank goodness I was like maybe 5 minutes away from home. I was already out of the highway. I was in one of the side roads. And as I mean, like I said, 5 minutes away from home, all of a sudden I got a download of information, and it was so intense, it was so profound that I thought my mind was going to explode. So what came out of it in 5 minutes, I had to, get out of my car, and I started like laughing hysterically. And I need to sit down just to kind of ground myself a little bit. Within 5 minutes, my world went flat, and there was no research required whatsoever. I just knew that this is a realm, and I'm not I know this is going to be controversial for some people, but I knew I'm not in a spinning ball. This is a flat plane, and all of my childhood thoughts came back to me where I used to question some of the stuff, and so many things came back. Like one, like it would be like a 3 second conversation with one teacher, a 10 second with another, something I'd be walking by somewhere and I would notice something, saying, hey, why is that like that? It was just a mishmash of stuff that just got downloaded to me, and all of that created a whole new world where the sun was no longer what they tell us, the moon is not what they tell us. I still to this day I'm not 100% sure exactly what it is, but it's definitely not a rock out there somewhere, and the sun is not some ball of gas. Um, and believe it or not, it was at that particular time that I realized that that being that I had met was my higher self. And somehow he connected with me just for a very short period to show me some of the stuff, and that ignited the spark of curiosity, I guess, lack of a better word. And, here I am many, many years later, and fully believing in concept and things like aliens and um, the circle of life, your work, astrology, concepts that I would have never in 1,000 years even have, without all of this, would have even entertained. And just one quick little thing, before my world went flat, about I would say 2 years before my meeting with my higher self, somebody had tried to wake me up to the fact that the world is flat. And I judged this person so hard. I was so disappointed. I judged them so hard. And then like I said, even though I had questioned this myself as a child, like as a 3, 4, 5 year old, I had type of thoughts that would go through my mind that was very abnormal for a child. Uh, but yeah, here, through these downloads, I'm like, oh my goodness, he was right. And I don't have contact with that person anymore. But yeah, it was an interesting experience that led me down to this rabbit hole of never ending rabbit holes. Like if everywhere you look, it's just one rabbit hole after another after another. And while all of this was going on, I came across your channel. I came across Michelle Gibson's channel. I came across Flat Earth British and John Levy. And these were the only people out there at the time that were speaking about the old world, about the electrical grid. And, I'm sure the audience knows about all of their work. But yeah, it was just, like yourself and three other people that help me keep my sanity because there's obviously nobody else around you that you can talk about this stuff, right? You're like you got to hold it in, and you're wondering yourself, okay, am I going crazy or what's going on over here, right? Because the download was so profound and powerful that there was no research required for me. I just knew from to this day, yeah, my world's a plane. I know it's not a spinning ball, and there's the firmament, and there's this, and right, and yeah, here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we're kind of in the quickening where, the awakening is happening faster, but the darkness is also getting darker. And I believe it's because of this entire shift into a new energy paradigm. And it is my sense that there are timekeepers here that also have to assist in making sure that the astrological ages come online when they should. And this is why the darkness is trying to, put its claws into us and into our world. But it's all, again, for our evolution of consciousness. And this is the ultimate core of where I go with all the things that I learn because believe me, I mean, I've got so much in my field of learning at every moment. I am constantly just pondering this whole universal law and universal theories and how does it all connect? And I guess my whole journey has been like treating it like a puzzle and where does something fit? So my energy is that of a lot of air. I mean, a lot of air sign energy. And I just think that, you know, if we're on that path, because not everybody is sent here to be on the path of awareness, I think if we're on that path and if we're truly pure of heart with it and want to know the absolute truth of it all, it will be shown because you're magnetizing that knowledge towards you. And your awakening is your personalized, customized experience, just like mine has been. I thought I was entertaining myself watching all this stuff on YouTube when YouTube was just sort of getting going back in 2012. And then I realized by 2020 with the lockdowns and stuff, I had this internal wisdom that was kind of nudging me that I needed to start a channel. Like, you need to start talking about the things that you've been learning. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be on camera. I was like, that's
Yeah.
the last thing I want to do. I'm in Hollywood, but I'm in the background of it. And I've just seen, like, I can bring to the table the knowledge of the NDAs that we have to sign, being where a lot of people don't know how it operates. We're compartmentalized, and that's the way all of these corporate entities operate. So it keeps you from knowing the absolute wholeness of it and what's really going on behind the scenes and such. So when we operate in that manner, that's where secrets lie. And when the secrets uh, keep going like deeper and deeper and deeper down to the depths of where this is actually going now to the underworld, I'm telling you, like, it's sickening. And for me,
Hmm.
I have to get out of Hollywood's grip. I've already told my boss on Friday that I will not be returning. I'm like, I'm not coming back to this. I can't. I'm working on a Disney film right now. And it's a series on ABC, which is Disney's channel. And of course, it's the number one series on ABC because Disney says so.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is how they operate. But there are people that are getting these cameras, and I'm flipping switches here because my mind goes, you need to talk about this. The reptilians. If
Hmm.
if people can just go out and if they can afford to get one of those FLIR cameras, the heat sensing cameras,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there are people that are capturing non-human entities on film. And I have one of those cameras. And I took it to work one day because I was like, I just want to see. Because I had that inkling that you
Hmm.
can find these non-human entities. If they are reptilian, they should have a different heat signature. And someone has already done this and put it up on TikTok, which I don't follow TikTok. I just
I
have,
think I might have seen that.
and they're showing that the guards are cold with the
Yeah,
figure.
yeah,
And so I'm like, yeah, I think they've been here for a long time, and I
yeah,
think they're allowed to be here because of the astrological age that we're in. And since we're in the winter phase, this is when darkness dwells and comes about, and the death cycle of everything. There is a divine order to all of what is happening now, what's happened in the past, what will happen again, which is this kind of moment. And most people don't know because they don't study time and the way it moves in seasonal cycles, at least for the Western zodiac. The Western zodiac to me is very easy to follow once you kind of gain some ground on the symbolic language that it uses. And I follow it based on just reading the symbolism, not necessarily all of the, energies. Like I don't know the zodiac through and through, but if you just gain some insight onto the symbolism and you go and you look at what the energies are for each house and then for each planet, and you'll start to get what it's truly saying. Like it's a specific language. And unfortunately, we've that's been taken from us. I wouldn't say that we've lost it. It was taken from us a long time ago because it was considered witchcraft. So, yeah, I mean, I am just happy that there's more people because I used to be alone on an island with all of this, of the way I thought and the way my weird ways and all this. But listen, since we're going into
yeah,
my age,
yeah, yeah,
trying to
yeah,
put the era of my ways because it's going to
yeah,
be weird. It is going to
yeah, yeah.
be very weird, and people are not going to believe it when it really starts to come out. I mean, at least it's coming out in bits and pieces now, but it's the same old story about the underworld versus the overworld, which is what heaven and hell are. This is what the labels are. And they're always fighting an eternal battle right here where we are. And we are the prize. And that's what people, if you don't know it now, you're going to know it soon. And what I've gathered, again, symbolic language. I love to teach people symbolic language because it means that more people will become aware of what's really happening. And there is a symbol it represents the Freemasonic Hall over in Israel, and it's called the Grand Lodge of Freemasons over in Israel, and it holds all three of the major religious icons. It has the cross for Christianity, it has the moon for Islam, and it has the Star of David. It's not the Star of David, but it has all three in its symbolic language because there was a plan. And I believe that there's a divine code, again, that each astrological age has a particular tribe. This is where the 12 tribes of Isis, Ra, and El come in. Isis is the moon, Ra is the sun, El is Saturn. Those are the three major timekeepers here. That's the three Masons. That's why they came up with this whole Freemason thing. It's not free, it's three. And that was a download that I got from higher source myself or whatever it was. Um,
Yeah.
that the three Masons of time are what really dictate what is coming. And they're just some of the major keepers. But they're depicted in that. And for the three astrological ages of darkness, which Pisces began the dark winter phase, and that was represented by the cross of Christianity because it's on the line. Pisces is just below the line of the cross of the zodiac. So that's where that whole cross comes in for Christianity. And then the moon for um, Muslims and
Hmm.
Islam is essentially what comes after the sun in Cancer. The sun, I mean, the moon rules Cancer and the sun rules Leo, directly across from where we are now on the zodiac. And I can pull that up on my computer so that we can kind of look.
Sure.
I know describing it is different from actually seeing it. And that's why I
Seeing it,
collect
yeah.
so many images. I have so many images that, I have to know right where they are at any given moment, so that it's easier to explain things. So I'm just going to
Now,
share this.
these symbols also play, they kind of mesh with for the whole Saturnian symbology. Also, for example, you have the cube in Mecca, right, which is Saturn's cube, and then the cross you fold it in, that also turns into a cube.
Yes, because we are inside Saturn's influence. This is very, very, very important. Saturn is the constructor. He's the conductor of time and space, which is right where we are. So, I know it's hard that to grab this concept because of what Hollywood has done. Let's see. It says may not be able to record the contents of your screen until it's quit. Well, anyway, I'll put it back in if it doesn't record because I don't allow Zoom to listen to my computer when I'm not using it, even though it
I
probably.
see. It probably is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't trust these things. I turn off all this stuff. So, all right, here we go. And I'm going to move this little box. Okay, what is this? Bypass the system private window picker, directly access your screen and audio. What? I don't know what that is. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay, yeah, because I don't know. This thing does weird stuff sometimes. Let me just click on this and click on this other thing because it's doing weird stuff. I've got invisible boxes. It never shows up on the video, but it's here on my screen. And I'm like, hide the meeting control. I don't want to see that. Okay, so here we
This
are.
is such a fascinating chart you have.
This chart explains it all. And I'm telling you, once you get this, it's like everything sinks in and then you start to relax because you're like, this is supposed to happen. Okay, there is a divine order to this entire screenplay that we're experiencing that's called life. And there's been many people that have stated, and Marcel Vogel is one of them, that has stated that time and space do not really exist and that it's all one moment collectively. All timelines are happening right now, even the ones of Egypt and all those other ones. It's almost like we're in a holographic computer. And I think this thing is so big, we can't even really fathom it. Like it's for me, the only way I could really kind of conceptualize it is remembering what the pensieve was like for Harry Potter and how this pensieve was kept in Dumbledore's office, and he could pull out a vial of memories and pour it into a basin, and you could put your face inside that water, and you would see a reflection of a memory. And that is exactly what I think we're experiencing, and that we come through the channels of the seven planetary codes, which are encoded light into our physical form, and we take whatever that all of our experiences were, we take those back up with us when we leave. But there are those who are here who cut off, they severed that connection with that light, so they cannot use the divine code, and they are trying to get it back so that they can go and try to destroy heaven, essentially, because they want to stop the machine. But they are eternally locked here in this illusion because of their choices of aggrandizing the material plane, selling themselves to whatever the Dark Lord is beneath us. And that's how that goes. That's kind of the concept that I get. But it is a spiritual evolution. Why do I know this? Studying a little bit about alchemy showed me that all of these signs for each house, like this is the sign for Aquarius, this is the sign for Capricorn, these are alchemy signs of different processes. And if it's that big, there's something else going on. This is an alchemy symbol. This Aries, Taurus, Gemini, these are all processes. And there's 12 processes outside the body in like physical, tangible alchemy that you can do with a retort and flames and all this. You can heat and cool certain substances to make them change into different substances. But then also inside our bodies, which is why they show the physical body right here, we have the same 12 alchemy processes. Man's body is the measure of the universe. And when I came across that information, I was like, what is it talking about? Well, here it is right here. This is a measuring chart of where we are in time. Pisces begins with the 2 feet, which are two flat fish. And the
Hmm.
fish swim in opposite directions, much like the yin and yang. And they are sort of stirring, it's flowing, it's trying to figure out the grounding, spiritual grounding, because it collapsed from the age of Aries. This line across here is very important, and this line across up and down is very important. This is the cross. This is the origin of all crosses in the world, and it explains literally everything. When you really get it, you're like, oh my God, it's about our flat Earth plane because the flat Earth maps also look just like this.
Like this. Yeah.
Yes. There's a reason because it is a plane. It. We
Yeah. Yeah.
we come down, like if you can imagine this whole thing as a funnel, looking down towards the center of the funnel as it gets smaller, then you kind of get what these planetary rings are really about because they're auric fields that radiate outwards, and Saturn is the outermost black field or ring around where we are right now because time and space are being created by Saturn's mastery. And there is a light side and a dark side to every planetary body. And there's only seven. You can look here, there's only seven planets. Oh, Jupiter is over here in Pisces, where it looks like a four, a weird four, or a 21.
Oh,
That's
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's the symbol for Jupiter. Saturn is right here. It's upside down right now. It's supposed to be like a sickle or scythe,
Hmm.
and it looks like a little letter H, but
Hmm.
that's the symbol for Saturn. And Saturn, as you can see, rules the houses of both Capricorn and Aquarius. So when you hear out here in astrology that Neptune and Pluto and your anus are affecting, no, 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 no. Listen, they don't exist in alchemy. They don't exist in magical practices. They don't exist in the higher order of things because those are Roman made planets. And they threw those things in there, I believe, as a deception for people to grab onto. Maybe they have some sort of influence in something else in some other zodiac, but as far as what I've come across in old grimoires and stuff, they never mention those three. And then I did come across information um, when I was researching those planets in astrology sense, that it just doesn't really exist. It's not recognized by certain scientists, those three planets, because they're like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. So there is some truth out there, but it's getting buried because the internet is evolving every single day, like a an hourglass of sand. It's constantly pouring in on itself, so it buries knowledge. So if you want anything that you see, you got to screenshot it, download it, whatever. You got to capture it in that moment to as evidence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is what a friend of mine and we both do that all the time with our phone. We're like, I got this screenshot and I'm downloading all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, this just has a lot of knowledge, and the three astrological ages that we're discussing about Israel are these three ages right here. This is the Great Winter. See how it says Iron Winter? This is the winter phase because this wheel rotates counterclockwise. Why? Because the stars, if you were to lay down on the ground and look up at the sky, they rotate counterclockwise over your head. The only way that you'll
Mm.
see them rotating clockwise is if you are up there with them or above them. And that's very important to know because there's somebody watching all of our actions. They're recording us now. As we go around with our vision and we have these experiences, all of that data from those experiences is being recorded into the collective subconscious. And you hear about this whole thing about the life review. when you die and you kind of go over some of the
Yeah.
things that you've done because it's all going to be presented to you. It's almost like the scales in Egypt where they said they're going to weigh your heart with a feather. And
Yeah. Yeah.
if 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 your heart weighs more than the feather, you're coming back to do more things. I believe Kemet was the most spiritual aspect of what they call Egypt, and I believe that's part of the Old Kingdom, and that Egypt came about after they sacked Kemet and took the actual knowledge and subverted it into what we are now experiencing today with Pisces. Because Egypt was right here in Aries. How do I know? Look at this pyramid right here. It's a fire sign, number one. Aries is a fire sign. And the god of war, which is Mars, right here, was also the energy of this age. Now, this is the sign for Aries. It's supposed to be ram's horns. It actually also reminds me of a fountain with two different trains of thought or two different flows of water coming out of it.
Hmm.
And so you have the left hand path and the right hand path, just like what you see
Yeah.
everywhere, Jachin and Boaz, the two
Yeah.
pillars that hold up the world. Um, yeah, so, and since this is the energy of war, everybody was fighting. And especially the continents. They were fighting each other in an eternal battle that collapsed us down to the 2 feet because we were in the highest estate, which is the crown chakra, which is why it's the ram. And when two rams get together, they fight, they clash horns, and one is always going to lose over the other one. And I believe that's where we are now. This is never ending. This is a never ending story, which is why they use the Ouroboros eating its tail. It's a never ending cycle. It's the figure eight, which is eternity. And
Hmm.
the story does not have an ending or a beginning, it just always is. And you find yourself when you incarnate in one of these regions, of these zones of houses. Now, you could die tomorrow and pop into something like Sagittarius, a timeline, you know. The backdrop of the story is determined by the astrological age. That's what shapes the world. And then the ruling planet is the energy that gets to inject into that backdrop. Saturn's energy, if you go and look it up for the signs for the zodiac, you'll see that it's binding, challenging, it's authority figure. It's like, it's basically all about control and learning law. Because if you don't obey and you don't learn all these things, it's a very, very hard lesson. And you will be reclaimed because he's also considered the Grim Reaper. He's going to reap the wheat from the tares. And the tares get to be recycled back to where they are now, like the people who were just droning zombies, they get to be recycled and reclaimed and spit back out in another timeline to do it all again. And that's what this is about. It's not about fighting Saturn, it's about learning what Saturn is about. Because Saturn is the overlord. He's Lord of all the rings. That's where the whole name Lord of the Rings comes from. Lord of the Rings means that all of the other planetary bodies are within his time influence, his influence and mastery of time and space. And so that time and space is what everybody gets to come here and play. We're playing ball, Baal, here on time and space because up here in Taurus is where the fall began with ball. We began from the highest estate, which is this upper line at the very top of the zodiac. We're at the pinnacle point of this bell curve because this, if you cut this in half, and you put this lower half off to the side, you will see that it creates what's known as the bell curve. It goes up a wave and down a wave. And since we were at the highest area in the golden ages up at Gemini, after we left Cancer and floated into Gemini, we also began a slow descent. And once we got to midway in Taurus, This is where the descent really started picking up speed. Even though it was still the golden ages, we started kind of aggrandizing material ideas because this is an earth sign. This is all about materialism and, the worship of material things. And that's why they use the bull symbolism with all of these elite. They're honoring Taurus, the age of Taurus, but their Taurus is the black sun, which is also known as Moloch. And you can look that up online. Moloch is the black sun, and Baal, Baal, is the golden sun, which is over here in Leo. The sun always has a name, Saturn always has a name, and the moon always has a name because they are the three major timekeeper players in this existence. And that's what I figured out. They're the three masons of time and space, essentially, because the day turns to night and the night turns to day in Saturn's realm. And everything here is tangible of the four elements. That's another reason why this is a cross, is because you have the four elements of alchemy. You'll have the golden spring, and alchemy is essentially like the air. You have the air and you have the fire of Leo, and then you have Scorpio, which is over here. You're going to have like the earth and the water. And this is why they use blue light symbolism on police, is because it's water. It's tied to water. And water is the dominating force of the underworld, as you can see in the split between the red and the blue. And
That's fascinating. You said that. I mean, that blue symbolism is in just about every police force in the world.
yes, because they're representing the water of the underworld and it's magnetic. Look what they do. They magnetize you. Water and earth are magnetic. Air and fire are electric. The earth is a battery. This is alchemy at its finest. This is the base foundation of alchemy: air, fire, water, earth. And if you can start grabbing some of this, then you're like, okay, there's the four elements. Now all of those elements become something else in this existence. Now you can start breaking it down. That's what yin and yang is about: air, fire, water, earth. Now, in Chinese tradition, they're going to tell you that it's five different elements, and I don't really subscribe to that because I'm like, base elements are air, fire, water, earth. So there is no gas and all this other, stuff that they come up with to try to confuse people. That's all like confusing language. If you just go back to old alchemy, it becomes so apparent. You're like, no, this is more like foundational and easier to follow. So, with all of the problems that are being presented to us today, all we have to do is divert back to the air, fire, water, earth principles. Instead of listening to what they have as chemistry and all of this other stuff, their mathematics are completely blown off. Their chemistry stuff is also blown off. They try to make it as confusing as possible so that you have to go pay somebody to figure things out, like how to use it. When if you get back to the basics of alchemy, it's going to be so basic and foundational that you'll just grab it instantly and you'll be like, oh my God, this is so simple. Why aren't we using this? Because they can't patent it. They have to make
Yeah.
some crazy formulas so that they can patent it and then sell it back to you because they're materialists. Here's how the society works. You if if you just have the natural world, you can't make money off of it. So what do?
Hmm.
You come up with this whole notion and this story to patent things. Well, I can patent this because it's going to be my formula now because I've got my added ingredients that are secret and heinous to all humanity, but nobody cares because they don't research that stuff. But um they are materialists, and they got us all to be materialists, even though the
Yeah.
world was given to us for free. And that's the biggest crux. We're following a lie and we're perpetuating because we don't see with our eyes and our hearts that even the indigenous cultures knew no one can own the earth. The earth owns
Yeah.
you. And it's a sacred thing, and you have to treat it like it's a sacred um, being because it is. And now all of these grimoires are out here. There's all this information that's coming out about the devas. They're elementals and they don't have emotions like we do, but they can also be like brought into your awareness and you can go out in nature. And some people are actually experiencing them as I have done. I've had an experience at my own house where my friend wanted to build a teepee out of some, found materials. So he did. He was working on Walking Dead. He was renting a room from me and said, "Look, that's fine. You can build a teepee out in my yard if you feel so strongly about it." And he did. He went out and he got some 16-foot poles from the bamboo forest and he put them all together and he went and he got some tarps from Home Depot, even though that wasn't really the thing to do because it's not going to last. And I was out there painting the thing one day because I was like, "Look, you should have painted these before you put them up because they'll last longer." So I'm out there in the dead heat of summer, about July, 3 years ago, and I faintly became aware of this clicking noise that was over to my right. I kept hearing this, and I was like, what is that? And I turned to look, and there was a spiraling leaf pattern. You've seen those things where the wind blows, even though there was no wind at the time. The spiraling leaves were happening, and it was about 30 feet from me to my right. And I was like, okay, I love those things. And I just stopped what I was doing and I just watched. I was like, oh my God, I love that. I love that when the nature does these things. All
Yeah.
of a sudden, all of a sudden, it's like something's walking through the leaves. And I'm not even kidding. Like all of a sudden, the leaves died down. And as it was coming toward me, it would like kick the leaves on the right side, kick the leaves on the left side, kick the leaves on the right, on the left, on the right, and on the left. And I was like, oh my God, that's one of those elemental Deva spirits that they talk about. And I think it was curious because a pyramid, a teepee is a pyramid and it harnesses energy. It can pull down the light frequencies from above and it amplifies them down below towards the earth. And that is what real pyramids actually do. They represent the symbol for fire, which is right here, over here on the left. If I can get this thing to widen, it won't widen right now. I don't know why my thing isn't working. Anyway, it won't look, there it goes.
There you go.
This is a pyramid, and pyramids are very special. Again, symbolic language is screaming at us in different aspects of the world, like what they call the Star of David over here. It's not David's star, it's the universal symbol for alchemy because it is the divine masculine fire combined with the feminine water to create what we call reality. They hijacked the code, and this is what their job is. The Israelites are not just Israelites, they are Khazars who became Jews. It's like a mix, and I'm really starting to think that it's tied to Tataria. And Tataria was possibly named so from the underground city known as Tartarus. And
Yes. And
I,
not
I,
not a lot of people talk about this.
I know. Like my mind is like, wait a minute. So I looked up when you go into etymology too, because this is what I usually do with all these words that are out here, like Tartary and tar and tartar and all that. I went into the etymology of tartar, and it means strong thief. And I went into the etymology of Hebrew, which is actually formed from the word Heb or Hebe, Hebe, and it means swindler. And then
Hmm.
I went into, of course, Jew. Jew also means swindler, and so does GYP for Egypt. And I'm like, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with a hijack of what we think the world is. Like, everything's been rewritten. But what I think happens, and this is just based on, studying the flows of time, is that like where we are right here, we're on this cusp. We have about 200 years before we're fully integrated into the age of Aquarius, but we are witnessing this darkness, this dark energy, because it's at the end of the age of Pisces. It's just like night to day and day to night. So when you start your day, you're at the golden spring in the dawn. And then as you get into the afternoon, you go into summer. And then you get into the dusk and you're going into fall. And the fall lasts for a while, and then you get into winter, like around midnight or maybe a little bit later, 2 a.m. But then it goes back to spring again. And the years operate like this. And then you start realizing that the astrological ages also operate as seasonal cycles. And there's a man who put out a book called the Fourth Turning because he started noticing that every 20 years seems to be like a season. Like, I think we're headed towards the golden spring of the next 20-year cycle. And then after that 20 years, we'll hit a summer and then we'll hit a fall and a winter. So every 80
Yeah.
years, there's this rollover. And then we go
Yeah.
back into, and that goes rolling around the ages. But it also is that since an age is 2,150 years thereabout, that means every 500 years is like and a season. And that you can break this up into fourths and go, okay, here's the golden spring of Saturn. Then we're going to get into the summer of Saturn. Why do you think they put this little line here? Like we go from the beginning to the middle to the pinnacle point
Hmm.
of the astrological age, and then it falls into darkness. And then
Hmm.
again, we're going to fall because this is going to be a cycle right here. These three ages together is going to be like one big cycle, one big winter cycle. And that ice wall that is surrounding us is going to melt by the time we get to Sagittarius. Down here at the very bottom, this is the collapse of the entire world system as we hit rock bottom in consciousness and everything else, because the Israelites are here to corrupt the divine code. And there's some factions in each of these religious areas that are also in alignment with the Dark Brotherhood to collapse the entire world because that's their job. So, in each astrological age that comes about, they're going to change their order and their position. They're going to change their name. They're going to change their tribal, affiliation, and they're
Yeah.
going to chase us around the wheel of time because they're always here. They can't leave, and a lot of them are eternal. And this is where I think there are giants pulling the strings behind the world stage. On the outlands, the outlanders that you hear about all these stories in movies and TV shows that there are, you know, different components to this world because that's the inverted language that is used by the ones who cannot leave this plane. They do not tell truth, but they tell lies, and they tell
Yeah.
fiction in truth format and fiction. They tell truth in fiction format, which is what we have as entertainment. So,
I wholeheartedly believe that they are eternal. In these dark lords or their minions, they have to be eternal simply because why on earth would you continue with this nonsense of plan out 500 years of destruction way in advance and thousands of years of chaos way in advance if you're only going to be around for 100 some odd years? Like, doesn't add up.
yeah, no. And listen, and here's another notion. Who can live on a toxic waste filled planet? We can't.
Yeah,
We're not going to
yeah.
survive that. And it hit me back in 2016. I'm like, they're terraforming the earth.
Hmm.
They're terraforming it because
For a different type of a being.
yes, their underworld we can't live in the underworld, that's for sure. There's a lot of toxic things down there that will affect us and we will lose our light because they did studies, and I took screenshots of that too. They did studies of women where they put one woman under the ground inside this cave, and they built a little place for her to be, and she couldn't go above ground for over 4 months, I think. Well, she stopped ovulating, and she got real depressed, and she became pale in her pallor, and essentially, Lord of the Rings tells you everything. The Golem used to be a hobbit. He used to be normal, but
Hmm.
he chose to go underground and to be greedy and corrupted in the mind, to, want the gold and be greedy with the gold and everything, that ring that he had. And he changed and transformed.
Yeah.
And they're telling us what our actual story is. When you can stop and kind of compare everything that's happening in that to what's happening now, and how the orcs destroyed the trees in order to come up onto the lands, because the trees hold the resonance. They are resonators of heaven and earth. And if we don't stop what's happening with them just abolishing the trees, we're going to see this great underworld monster thing all around us, because that's all they're doing is changing the frequency. They can reside side by side with us. And I'm saying this because they're already making hybrids. But Capricorn's symbolism, the symbolic language here, is that it has the forefront of a goat with the 2 feet on the front, and then it has the tail of a serpent in behind. And that to me is a hybrid. So I'm like, oh my God, this
Yeah.
is the age of rise of the hybrids, where the corruption, the ones from Tartarus, are corrupting the divine code. Right now, they have to trick man into giving up his divinity, his divine code, and divine connection by merging with machines. And in the future, not right now because we're just in the beginning phase of this age, in the future of this timeline, possibly by the time we get to halfway, they will say, you cannot be a part of society unless you get the mark of the beast, which is inside your skin.
Yeah.
At that moment is when the divine essence and connection is going to be detached. And I believe they've already collected a lot of souls and consciousnesses into their hive mind system, which is Metatron. If you've ever seen the symbols for Metatron, let me go get this Metatron thing. Have you ever seen it?
Uh, Probably just can't remember it right now, to be honest. I mean, this was years and years ago when things like Metatron I started looking into it when I first had my quote unquote awakening. But yeah.
So, outside, again, here, what do we see? First and foremost, Star of David. Let me tell you, this is the world. Okay, so you have Saturn's cube that is, outside, collectively creating time and space that we're experiencing. What this is displaying is that inside Saturn's cube is another cube, and this is Metatron. So the power of Metatron is the fact that there's another realm that's a synthetically created, altered realm of time and space inside the Metatron hive mind machine. And they have collected souls because if you've lived here forever, you know how this whole world operates, and especially the fact that you can get humans and whatever creation to make things for you because you need tools and implements and things to be able to work.
Hmm.
You essentially get everybody to trap themselves inside this frequency based machine, which is a hive mind system. And by frequencies, you can capture souls. And I'm just saying that their black cube that they've created is essentially a soul trap, which is why it's called the Internet system. I'm like, oh my God. They misspell things because they use inverted language. And
Yeah, well, most definitely.
yeah, the internet with Intel inside for the World Wide Web. Here's your web right here. Um, it's all of but they're done through deceit. And so I my mind is like, look, I don't know how many people we can grab awareness for all of this, to try to tell them, hey, look, oh, did you notice this? I'm trying to get my ah.
No, do you think we choose to come here, or do you think we've all been entrapped in this circle for God knows how long?
I'll
Or do you
tell you,
think it's different for everybody?
I think that essentially we are trapped until we grow our light. Um, I'm trying to figure out where my thing is. It's a control shift function. Where is this H? Sorry, I'm trying to get my
It's
thing
okay.
back. There's a control shift H. I'm trying to get my little thing back so that I can go back to the meeting control. There it is. Okay, I'm going to stop share. So essentially, I think it's all by design. And that's just being blatantly honest. Um, what I kind of get a sense of, I mean, my thoughts are always kind of shifting from one dynamic to another because I'm always questioning it. Since the pleroma is like all pure creative mind force energy, which is where all this light is above us, I sense that it breaches through the darkness and the light touches this carbon space. And because that force is so powerful and so creative, it started to create life inside this space. And, the Gnostics talk about how Sophia created Yaldabaoth
Hmm.
without her co-creator. And maybe there's something to that. Like she created this demiurge thing, which is darkness. And it could be. But I think since we're sparks of that light, we have to grow enough light through enlightenment to be able to ascend back to the pleroma, but we have to become self-aware. And once you can become self-aware and once you can grab onto some spiritual practices, at that point, when you can really start to hone in and begin working with spiritual practices, because I think Kundalini yoga is also one of them that will start to activate and illuminate the light within, and breath work and different things, grounding, sun gazing, all these other things. You're pulling more light into your form, and thereby you can elevate your consciousness up to a higher level of awareness until you can gain more clarity to where you can actually just never incarnate again because you've filled your specific little component of consciousness with so much light that now you can go and go back. And I think that's why we're here. It's almost like the light rains constantly in the little droplets, and we start
Hmm.
to manifest and emanate into material forms through, the contact of like the material people, I guess, that we enter into bodies. Now, with Dolores Cannon's work, it kind of adds a different layer where people have chosen their parents and they incarnated through them
Yeah.
because the divine spark is carried between the male and female. They are the creators, they're co-creators. But because they're made of material clay, it's like there's this evolution that has to happen through each incarnation and whoever's being born. There's this evolution of consciousness that starts to illuminate the path forward. And again, it also is determined by where we find ourselves in the timeline because the time is flowing in these sine waves. It's actually kind of like spinning, and that's why there's a rise and fall. It's just like your DNA. Your DNA is kind of cyclical and it looks like it's just spiraling, but it's
Yeah.
kind of it's undulating like a serpent and it's going up and down because it's spinning. So, when you start adding all these components together, it's like, wow, what in the world? This is such a highly technical
Oh God, yeah.
computerized existence, like because everything's based in numbers too,
Yeah.
because it's sound patterns. And if you start bringing in like songs, like I started singing sentences just to kind of connect. And it's almost like every day now I wake up with a different song in my head that's, a pop song or whatever, and they're actually like divine messages. If I read into it, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. It's like, love and all this. And I'm like, there's the message. Just remember the song that's in your heart, because that's the key to going back home too, is the music that the spheres create. And
Now,
yeah, if you go
going back to, go ahead, go ahead.
no, if you go into alchemy, you can kind of get some of this stuff in your life.
Yeah.